Hello and welcome to step 3 of the framework, narrative themes. This is the final piece of the puzzle that is going to bring everything together. So what are narrative themes? Well, these are kind of little mini blueprints that you can use to plan your public sharing. They're specific story patterns, almost like templates in a way, that could work for you, and they're based on a really large thematic analysis I did of the ways and techniques and journeys that different creators have used to tell stories in public about their work. So because it's useful, you now know your motivation, so why you want to share, and your mode, so how you prefer to express yourself. So these themes are now going to take that, give you these patterns that other people have actually used, and then you'll create something in the end that's unique to you. Now, this video, because we've got 8 narrative themes, I'm going to cover the theory of each theme, just what each theme is in this video, and then we'll use a final video and I'll talk through a real life example for each of these as well. So this is just to break up the length of the video. So before we dive into the individual themes, let me show you how all this comes together in the framework grid, which is in front of you here, or it's on your framework PDF. Now over here, and I'm just going to use my pen, hopefully this helps. Over here is where you'll see the intersect between motivation and mode, and that's going to reveal the specific themes that meet your goals and your natural expression style. So along the horizontal axis is motivation, which we covered in the first step, and then on the vertical here is your mode, which was our second step. Ideally what you'll look for is what your motivation is. Scroll down the grid and see your mode is point of view, and here you are going to have some kind of patterns or inspirational examples. I'll talk to in detail what each grid square has at the end of the video. And each intersection also gives you 1 to 2 theme options as well. It's got some detailed examples, practical guidance. So that's the bigger picture of this framework. There's also over here, and again I'll just use my pen, on the right hand side you've got this appendix of themes. Once you start looking at the grid and you've got a few kind of curated examples that I've put here that are recommended for the intersect that you end up getting, but over here is just a list of all the different narrative themes that I've identified in patterns, so you can also have a look here as well if you prefer to look at it from a different angle. Okay, so let's start with the first theme, and this is learn in public. This theme is about sharing your active learning journey, so it's about documenting breakthroughs and struggles as you develop new skills. This was covered when I covered the last case study, Dr. Anne-Laure Le Cunff. You might recognise this. It's actually quite a common theme as well. It is used by different creators in public, and it kind of frames curiosity and transparency as strengths rather than a weakness or being or a kind of negative side of vulnerability. It's also very good because it doesn't require any expertise. You are essentially learning and you're sharing simultaneously along with your learning journey, which is really perfect for beginners as well, and also those that are earlier in their career. It also, what's good as well, is it creates a really authentic record of your growth. So it's almost like a portfolio in a way, and that can help you connect with like-minded people, and it really shows off exactly your thought process and who you are, because it's not about you pretending to be an expert, you are showing the journey of becoming one. The next theme, a little bit similar to the last, is called Build in Public. This is specifically about showing the process of building something, so that can be a business, a product, a service or a project. It's about you, that is the story, essentially what you're building. And this is also very common, particularly in the tech industry. A lot of people use this to share their own story as a founder as they build, and it's about showing the project's process. So you're kind of sharing updates and wins, decisions, the lows, the highs. You're also inviting feedback and community along the way, but maybe specifically about this one is because you're doing it for the purpose of your venture or something you're building, you are turning that development process itself into a kind of marketing strategy for the thing that you're building. And that's quite powerful because people become invested in your journey. And because I think right now there's so many products, and it's so difficult to create something that's truly, truly unique, if ever possible. So how do you stand out? And you stand out by telling stories and bringing people along and helping them resonate with what you're building, so they become invested. And then by the time you launch, you hopefully already have this engaged community that's waiting, rather than having to go out and make a massive effort to try and find an audience after you've built something. Okay, the third theme is documenter. This one is brilliant for people who maybe think you just have nothing interesting to share, and it's also very, very good for beginners. I would say if someone has no clue where to start, you could probably just start here. This is all about simply using what you do every day, and it's about capturing and organising those experiences, the tools you use, the workflows, and just sharing them for others to learn from. It's really about you turning your personal or professional processes, hopefully into kind of mini guides or tutorials, and you're kind of almost translating what you do. Because a lot of us, when we've worked in a field for so long, or when we've studied a field for so long, you lose sight of the fact that not everyone gets what you do, and it's not obvious to everyone. So actually simply just showing what you do, making complex topics accessible, you're leveraging everyday activities, the things that feel routine to you are probably valuable to other people. And I think especially your everyday work contains those insights that people would find really, really useful. Okay, thought leader. This is very common, and probably most of us have heard of this, so it had to be a pattern, had to be a theme. So this is about positioning yourself as someone who has a distinct perspective on your topic or field. So, you're sharing opinion pieces, you're sharing maybe questions that provoke discussion or conversation. You're probably hoping to build authority through your ideas, but you don't just want to do it through your credentials. It's about putting your voice out there, and then you're influencing others and how others think about industry issues or practices. And I did want to say here, because narrative clarity, this framework is all about trying to put story forward, and authenticity, and personalising your content to to the things that you want to share. And thought leader seems super polished, intimidating, but it's not always. It doesn't need to be just for leaders or CEOs in the field. It's actually for anyone who has a very strong perspective. Probably you have some kind of expertise about the topic. Maybe you've studied it for a long time, or you've worked in it for a long time. It's not really suitable for beginners. It's suitable for students or academics, because studying in the field is giving you expertise, but it is about having a body of knowledge. You can, even if you don't have seniority in the field, you can contribute those valuable viewpoints, and then influence others and help others as well. Okay, field expander. This one is a little bit similar to thought leader, but it's quite different as well. This is about widening access to a discipline or an industry, and it's about making it more relatable or inclusive, or even, in some of the examples that I found during my research, almost even opening up areas of your field, new areas, new pockets of your field completely. Typically, when you use this theme, you're translating complex or maybe closed off topics into something that's more accessible. You're helping to invite new voices into the conversation, so very inclusive, and you're kind of looking at new domains or approaches, and you make all of this very welcome to newcomers. I think this is also, I noticed, this is very, very good for people who can kind of leverage an insider-outsider perspective as an asset. And when I come on to the real life examples in the next video, I have one of Dr. Maria McLaren who felt like an outsider in her field because of her aesthetics, her visual aesthetics, the way she looks. And actually she was able to use that to provoke kind of interest in what she was doing. Interest because her aesthetics didn't match the field that she was in. She was actually in forensics and the police and then in academia. So that kind of insider-outsider archetype in a way is actually very useful, and it can open up fields and encourage people who maybe think that they didn't belong to a certain field. It might make it feel more accessible, because in a way you come off as fresh, you know, you're fresh enough to see what others might be missing. Okay, the sixth theme is called transformation, and this is about documenting quite a significant shift in your mindset or your lifestyle or your identity, and it's kind of often structured around before and after moments. This one is different from Learn in Public. You're still sharing learnings and shifts and changes, but this is kind of more about identity level change, and it's about shifting values or career direction. So where this came up a lot in my research was maybe people who are rejecting the norms of a field or rejecting structures around them, particularly around careers. A lot of people are looking for new ways to build careers, new ways of fluidity in their careers. So I looked at a lot of portfolio careers or people looking at fractional work, and I'll cover an example in our real life case studies of Anna Mackenzie, who's kind of doing a lot of talking and publishing around portfolio careers. But this really works because, okay, it's opening people up to change, but people are naturally drawn to transformation stories. It's a core theme of narrative theory. And when you're sharing your genuine process of change, you're kind of giving people permission and inspiration to make their own changes in their own professional lives. Okay, we move to our seventh theme, and this is curator. This is about spotlighting the work, ideas and tools of other people, and it's about helping your audience discover valuable content. So maybe the reason you want to share is not that you want to share a lot of information or details about yourself, but actually you like to express things or share and pull together and spot patterns between different pieces of work, or you prefer to curate pieces of work together that might inspire people. So you, if you're using the curator theme, you're building trust through your taste and quite thoughtful selection rather than original content of your own. And through this, you position yourself as a connector or a guide rather than a subject expert, which is actually still another way of expertise. That curation is then your form of self-expression, and it shows how you see the world. And there's a lot less pressure on this than creating everything from scratch. It still does require thoughtfulness and some skill and perspective. Generally, the most helpful curators are people who have read widely about the field, study and search for inspiration in the field. So that all of that becomes your unique value. It's your lens that people are interested in. Finally, we have the eighth theme, which is rituals. Now, I've described this as focusing on I've said small repeated practices that anchor identity or values, and it's often used aspirationally. This is kind of similar to maybe influencer style content you see, but what we're doing is putting a professional lens over that and say, okay, if you like to share that way through rituals, how can that work in a professional environment? So you could show how you live and work through consistent, meaningful actions. So you're building intimacy, you're demonstrating your values through daily actions. So maybe you're sharing like a day in the life, or you're sharing maybe moments in time, a thought you had during the day. You're maybe showing your processes and your routines. This works because people are naturally curious about how others structure their lives. So when you're sharing rituals and moments and flashes from your life and your work, you are creating quite a personal connection with your audience. One other important point to make about this is often used aspirationally. So a lot of people who do kind of founder diaries or founder day in the lives, or maybe show their lifestyle to kind of brand their products in a way, it's often about giving people a peek into an aspirational style of life, or something that people would look up to. Okay, so those were our 8 themes. Just want to give you one more note on the grid. I mentioned that I'd explain what's inside each of the boxes. So once you select your intersect, so let's use here. So let's say your motivation is you're growing a product and you want to share opinions. So you would come down here. And what you'll find in the box, you'll either find two suggested options for different narrative themes, or maybe one suggested option as well. Within that, you'll have a description of the theme and specifically how it applies to your intersect. So you'll see here, I've got the documenter theme for someone who has a motivation of new venture, wants to share through point of view mode, but there's also a documenter theme up here. That's because what I've done is in the description is I've contextualised it because it's applicable for both. You'll see down here some very brief suggestions on ways of sharing, so kind of formats, so written suggestions, visual or video suggestions, some optimal beginner channels as well for platforms to share on. And then I've got an example of a creator that is using this particular theme in the context, the intersect that you have selected. So for this one, for Documenter, I've got a little example of Peter Levels. You can then click on the name and it will take you to his main channel. I've also said the Thought Leader theme as well for this intersect. And down here, we've got Sam Altman as an example as well. And I'll cover that in the fourth video. So that's just how the grid works. So some themes are across. So, we've got Learn in Public here, here. We've got Thought Leader here, here, and also here. We've got Curator across point of view and also under the lifestyle mode as well. So that's what these are. This is all contextualised to make it easier for you. And that's us. Congratulations. You now have narrative clarity. And hopefully you can see the confetti. Woohoo! Ever since I started using this recording software, I wanted to use that button. But yes, well done. I hope this has given you a starting point. It's given you clarity and also inspiration to start sharing with a lot more confidence and direction. A comment I'd say is, due to this being an academic project, this narrative clarity course, it's a concept, and I've created the first stage, which is of course clarity and direction around narrative, because that was the biggest pain point in my research and my user interviews. Actually starting was the biggest stumbling block. So this is all about actually getting you started and getting you inspired and showing you that you do have a unique point of view and you can tell it in interesting ways. So once you've got that confidence and direction, the next plans for this course in future is to cover two other pieces of, a public personal narrative journey, which would be around creating content, so what formats are available, and sharing content, so how and where to share. But for now, in the next and final video, I will take you through some real life examples of the themes in action, so you can see exactly how successful creators have used these approaches to build their audiences, achieve their goals, and really, really design some super interesting careers. It's really quite inspirational, and a lot of people I've tested the framework with have found these examples the thing that they needed to show that actually this is possible and they could maybe design their own career or direction in future. So I hope you find that inspiring. Thank you for taking this course and good luck. Bye bye.